Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. It's a very special day. This episode is going to be all about the Leagues Cup. It's sort of a primer for that tournament, which has a new set of regulations and a new format, and we're going to talk about and try to explain it. And we're also going to talk about Rodrigo de Paul, who we expect to be a major factor for Inter Miami in this tournament. But first, I have to say, happy birthday, Saur. And provide a little context. We are recording this episode on Friday, July 25th. It'll be released on Monday. So this is 3 days early when we are talking to you. And the reason we're not going to be able to record on Monday is because Saur has big birthday plans. And so I just wanted to say happy birthday to you. I hope you're having a wonderful time tonight. And I hope that you feel great to be, what are you now, 45?
No, more like 48, but yes. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate it. As always, you catch me off guard. My plans are to get a huge chocolate cake and stuff my face in it. So hopefully, I'm going to be doing that, watching myself on my TV with this episode. So call it narcissism or just an old man's pipe dream, but that's my plan. But thank you. And what better to spend it than to talk about Inter Miami, Rodrigo de Paul, and the League's Cup, because that means there's another trophy out there for Inter Miami to go win. And it's going to be an exciting, at least week and a half, if not longer.
Yeah, I have no faith that you just told us the truth. I think if you were planning on staying home on your birthday, we would just be recording on your birthday. But I'm sure you're tearing up the town right about now. Okay, Leagues Cup. It's a totally new format. Sorry, before we get into it, the reason we're explaining this is because we don't know what happened on the FC Cincinnati game. So hopefully there's no injuries. We have heard the news that Messi and Alba are going to be suspended for that game. So uh, we'll talk about that for the pregame show and all that stuff. But it means they should be rested going into this Leagues Cup and maybe with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. We'll see how that plays into it. Okay, the Leagues Cup. First off, are you excited for it? Is this something that you think is really important for Inter Miami or not so much?
I know fans are always divided about the League's Cup, and it's a bit of a controversial tournament. Uh, Personally, I'm very excited. There are two reasons for it because Inter Miami hasn't performed particularly well in the tournaments that we were supposed to win, also known as the CONCACAF Champions Cup. That was the first trophy that we could have won outright. Failed to make it to the final, win it. Fair enough. The Club World Cup, we didn't have too many expectations from. The league is going along well enough, at least for Inter Miami. We'll see how the Cincinnati game goes, and that's probably going to change the mood and the conversation. But the next immediate trophy is the League's Cup. We've won it before, but there's no reason that fans can be excited for Inter Miami to win it again. So that's one of the reasons that I'm excited. It's always fun to see your team perform in a tournament, go up against newer teams, fresher teams, have a different set of competition, and then hopefully make it to the final and win it. If that happens, I think we're all going to have a really good time. And the second aspect, you've already prefaced this, is the change in the structure, the format. It's very different. I know we're going to talk about it a little bit, but I think it freshens things up, brings a completely new element to a tournament that has sort of been stale. Uh, I don't know whether it's good or bad, but it's going to be different. And I'm excited to see how it plays out and how it pans out. The way it's been structured, it feels like there could be a few exciting matchups. There could be a few exciting moments where um, the table will determine who goes through. So, all that being said, I think there's a lot to look forward to. And if you're an Inter Miami fan, if you're excited for this tournament, don't let anyone get you down about it.
If you wanted to say during the offseason that the Leagues Cup doesn't matter, fine. I don't begrudge you of that. But now that it's here, it matters. And I can promise you to these players, it matters. Um, they care. They want to win this. This is a team that has the expectation of winning not just one, but two trophies. And that might have to include the League's Cup at this point because they didn't win the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And the Supporter Shield does feel like a big task. Winning the League's Cup would go a long way to making this successful season. And so I think it absolutely matters. I think the players, once they get on the pitch, are absolutely gunning to win every trophy they can. And this is a unique time in the season where they will get that opportunity to win a trophy and I think really get things on track for the season. You feel a lot better about them going into the League's Cup. I'm sorry, into the MLS Cup playoffs, etc. So this is a big tournament. Inter Miami has a chance to win it because they have one of the most talented rosters in the league and in the tournament. So for them, it's I think it's like we should be winning this tournament is the standard. I don't know if it's necessarily the expectation, but it's within reach and it's something they really want and it's something they have the talent to do. And I think all of that adds up to we should be winning this tournament. Um, and so if they get unlucky or whatever in a certain game, we can always sort of justify that. But I think a poor performance over the course of the tournament would reflect poorly on a lot of factors on this team. So it absolutely matters. And I hope fans, now that we're here, are starting to get excited for it because I think it's going to be new, interesting, higher stakes. And I think that's going to make it very exciting. But I think anyone that thinks it doesn't matter right now, missing the point of competitive sports, if I'm being honest.
And I think I was about to say this, but then I held my tongue. But you sort of mentioned it. We may be disappointed at the time if Inter Miami gets knocked out, or at least right now we're thinking if it doesn't go our way, that's fine. But I'm sure when that happens in the
Oh,
moment
yeah.
and when we're doing the post game show, we're going to be very disappointed because whatever said and done, regardless of the form, Inter Miami is one of the favorites for this tournament. They are going into this tournament touted to win. And when that's the case, I think the team needs to perform up to the mark. And as long as the performances are there, as long as we've given everything on the pitch, I think us as fans expect Inter Miami to at least reach the final, if not go out and win the whole thing.
And I think it's the right expectation. Messi and Alba are well rested, and the team has had, I think, their biggest break of the season, except for that 2 week period prior to the Club World Cup. And we saw coming out of that 2 week period, they were playing like a different team. They had an added and new intensity, and they felt revitalized. So I think for Messi and Alba, you would expect big tournaments from them. I think the rest of the team is talented enough to take on any competition in this tournament. Okay, let's get to the rules. In the past 2 seasons now, there has been a specific structure that they have gone with, and they thought it did get a little stale in year two. The excitement, the shininess of it from year one kind of fell off, and it wasn't quite the same in year two. So they wanted to make some adjustments. I think they tried to make answer a few criticisms from the fans. I think Messi being alive and well and a storyline in that first year may have overshadowed some of the deficiencies. And so they're trying to address that. But just as a reminder, this is what it looked like last season. All 29 MLS teams and all 18 Liga MX teams were in this tournament. 47 total teams. They were split up into groups of three, and you played a quick group stage of which 2 out of 3 teams advanced. So it was 3 total games, but each team would play 2 games in the group stage. Uh, Basically, if you won one game, you were through. It was very easy to get through those first 3 legs, and each team played 2 of them. Was non-dramatic if you were considered a favorite. It was very easy to get through, and so it became a hassle, I think, more than anything. And for the teams that got eliminated earlier or weren't good enough, it also became something of a humiliation ritual, probably is the wrong word, but there was a lot of blowouts from teams that clearly weren't it to win it for that tournament because they probably didn't have the talent to anyways. And then if you lost, you had a 2 week break before you went back to play with your regularly scheduled MLS games or League MX games. And so if you lost early, then you had a long break with no games. It wasn't great for the fans. There was a lot of reasons that made this tournament not that fun if your team wasn't sort of really in it. They tried to address a lot of that. First off, and I'll add, Liga MX and fans of Mexican teams also had a lot of criticisms. It's being played in the United States. It's being played with all 29 at the time teams in the MLS. And so there was a little bit of an unfair advantage for MLS teams. And they tried to address that a little bit last year. I think they did it even more this year. But here's what it looks like now. They kicked out a bunch of MLS teams and they said, we're going to make it 18 on 18. And basically, they took the best 18 teams from last season in the MLS, qualified those teams for the tournament. So now with the 18 League MX teams, you get a 36 team tournament straight up 18 on 18. So no more huge numerical advantage for the MLS. 12 teams, now that San Diego has joined this year, not invited to this tournament. They're participating in the Open Cup or other tournaments. Of the 18 teams, you are going to play three phase one games against teams from the opposite league. So if you're an MLS team, you're going to play three League MX teams. If you're a League MX team, you're going to play three MLS teams. So unlike in years past where Inter Miami would play Atlanta like they did in that first year, or Toronto, who they played in that second year, it'll be no more Liga MX versus MLS games early on. Those aren't as exciting. They're not as fun. We've seen what those matchups look like. So they tried to do away with that. The league phase, or the phase one is what they're calling it. That is a 3-game stretch where every MLS team plays 3 Liga MX teams. Every Liga MX team will play 3 MLS teams. You want to accumulate as many points as you can in that 3-game stretch, because how you do will be graded against other teams from your league, and only a few teams get through. So 18 MLS teams will play 3 games. Only 4 teams of that 18 will get through to phase 2, which is sort of the knockout rounds. Only 4 teams advance out of 18 MLS teams, which means that every single one of these group stage games is important, not just to get a result, but to get a victory. I think if you get less than 7 points in your league phase, in your phase 1 game, you are really going to struggle to get through to that phase 2. And then in phase 2, it's just you go into a quarterfinal knockout stretch where you will play, again, in the quarterfinal, you'll play a team from the other league. And then in the semifinals, that's the first time you might play a team from your own division. So from your own league, rather. So it's much more intense. Every single game is crucial. A single loss can crash your tournament. And we're only going to be playing League MX teams for quite some time. So I think they did a lot of things to make this more exhilarating, more fun. One thing I'll also add is that only the group stage is isolated in and of itself. So the next MLS game will be after the group stage, but before any sort of knockout round games. So if you do lose early, you still go back to the MLS, and it doesn't destroy your month in terms of how many games your team gets to play. What do you think? And
First
did
of
I
all,
explain that well?
great job explaining this. I think it took me at least 2 hours to sit down and digest the rules and understand what is even going on with this, because this is very, very fresh, very new. I don't think we've seen any other tournament across the world that has been played in this manner. So, well done for you to explain this. For those who are trying to visualize this, essentially, it's imagine 2 league tables, one the MLS league table and one the Liga MX league table. Everyone from the MLS league table will play 3 teams each in the Liga MX table, and everyone in the Liga MX table will play 3 teams each from the MLS table. That's been drawn at random, but you're competing essentially for points within your own tables. So, as you said, it no longer matters what group you've been playing in terms of the teams you face. It matters how you match up against your own league teams, that is the MLS teams. And for that reason, the jeopardy and the stakes are so much higher, because you might have performed well across the 3 games that you've played based on how the other 3 teams have played, but you may not have performed well in your own group of MLS teams. So the best chance that you have of going through the next round, and by the way, it's going to be 4-4 from each table who goes through to the quarterfinals, the best chance is to win every single game and win by a lot. So that means every side has to take this seriously if they want to progress to the next round. Every side has to put in everything into every game that they play. And one slip up can really ruin your entire tournament because you don't know how the rest of the games are going to go. So this is very exciting. It's high stakes, as we've already mentioned, and anything can happen. The jeopardy is very high, and anything can happen. And I can bet you right now, there's going to be instances where a few MLS teams are on the same number of points, but just by a hair or a second or a third qualification signal, one of the
Tiebreaker.
team goes through exactly the tiebreak, and that's going to be heartbreaking. But that's the reality of this format and this setup. So strap
So
in.
here's
It's going to be fun.
here's I think the thing that unnerves some fans but makes it more exciting overall, I think, is you do not control your own destiny. There
Absolutely not.
could be a team that wins all three of their phase one games and still does not qualify for the second round. If you don't get at least seven, I don't think you have a chance, if I'm being totally honest. If you don't get a blowout somewhere in there, rack up a 3-0, 4-1 type win, you might be in trouble. So is that frustrating in the moment? Of course, but that means that the stakes are high. Like you said, a goal given up in the 89th minute, even if you're winning 2-0, can cost you your tournament. Every single minute is going to matter because every single goal is going to make a huge difference. If you give up a late equalizer, it could send you home. If you have a bad second game, you're not necessarily going to be able to make it up in the third game because the team you're playing on the field is not who you're competing against for advancement into the next round. So an unbelievably exciting format. I think. I hope my team does not lose because of it. I can understand why some people might not like it. It's certainly not traditional. It's certainly new, but I think I see it and I see the potential. I think it could be ultra exciting. But it certainly makes me nervous as an Inter Miami fan because you really have no room for errors.
And honestly, sometimes when you're competing against the teams, playing the teams and competing against the same team in the same group, uh, sometimes both teams know the permutations or have the same permutations that they need to get a result. I think this time around, it's going to be very interesting to see how the team that you're facing approaches the game, because you might only need, for instance, 1 point to get through, but they might actually
Oh,
need to win. And
I don't think
yeah,
any team is going
I
to be
don't think any
comfortable with
team's
one
going to
point.
be, yeah,
But to your point, if you lose the first two games, you're not going to advance anyways. And so
exactly,
if you're a team competing for one of those four spots and you end up facing a team that's already basically knocked out going into the final match day, that could be a huge advantage.
exactly.
Um, People are going to hate it in the moment if it messes up with their team. If it screws your team over, of course you're going to hate it. But I think if you're looking at it from a neutral perspective, I think it makes it incredibly exhilarating. And I applaud them for trying this because I did think last year's tournament there was improvements to be made, I think. And so I'm excited that they're trying this, and I think it's gonna be a fun tournament.
And you have to give them credit for it. It may work, it may not work, but at least they're trying something different. They've heard the fans, and we'll see what comes out of it. Could be complete chaos, but nonetheless, it'll be exciting and it'll be fun.
Inter Miami last season was in the worst bracket you could be in because they finished third worst team in the MLS, and it was based on your standings in the league the year prior. Of course, last year they won the Supporters Shield. So they are in the A group, which means they have a little bit of an easier schedule. They host all of their own home games at Chase Stadium. A couple advantages, and also they avoid, and I'm not sure if this is based on the luck of the draw or if it's because of where they're seated, but they avoided some of the biggest clubs in Mexico on this journey. I want to talk about, and we will talk about Inter Miami's matchups and what they look like. For reference, they're going to be playing Atlas in that first game, Necaxa in that second game, and Pumas in the third game of the league's phase. I think they're calling it phase one, is how they're trying to brand it. So no Monterrey, no Club America, even though those games would be a lot of fun. Considering the stakes, I'm glad that that's not on the table. And then we'll see what happens in the knockout rounds if Inter Miami can get through. Before we get into that, though, we got to talk about the new edition. Again, we are recording this on Friday, July 25th. It is our understanding that Rodrigo de Paul is in South Florida. At the same time, Inter, as of us recording this, has not officially announced it. It is our impression that he will play against Atlas on Wednesday night in that first game. If things have changed, um, that's unfortunate, but we expect him nevertheless to be a huge part of this tournament. So we thought it would be right to talk about Rodrigo de Paul, how he's going to impact this team, what we think the impact could be, and just sort of marvel at the fact that we're getting a superstar like this because the more I look into him, the more I realize he is an absolute monster of a player. And when he comes into this league, he has the skill set that already thrives in this league. And then you multiply it by the sort of elite pedigree that makes him a world champion and a Champions League semifinalist and all that stuff. So I couldn't be more excited about this signing.
We can have a 30-second conversation about Rodrigo de Paul and move on, because honestly, everything we want to say about him is love it, positive, will change the Inter Miami midfield, and it's going to be great. But I know you and I love to talk about analysis and tactics and how it's actually going to work and what it's going to look like in practice. And that's why we're going to spend the rest of the episode talking about Rodrigo de Paul. Um, Absolutely fantastic signing. If anyone who's seen the draft that we recently did, I think you and I would both agree, if we did that draft after the League's Cup, after Rodrigo de Paul has been announced for Inter Miami, he would automatically be, I think, the top three players in this team. This is not a player who's coming at the end of his career trying to get a paycheck towards the final years that he has left and just enjoy the South Florida weather. This is not a player who's coming in for his retirement season. This is a player who could potentially still be in the prime of his career, who has a good few years ahead of him, who has won the World Cup, experienced everything that there is to experience in the game of football. And he's chosen to come to Inter Miami and spend at least the last few years of his prime at Inter Miami. He's going to change that midfield. And I'm going to say that again, change it in a manner that we're not even used to. The intensity that he will bring, the technicality that he will bring, the skill set that he's going to bring in, we have some of it, but it's either in individual players across the pitch or the quality is not as high. And that, I think, is the biggest difference. The quality, the mentality, and the technicality of it is going to be a huge difference for our midfield. And I can't wait to see how he matches up. And I can't wait to see how he fits in, because I think he's going to hit the ground running.
He's an athletic monster along the lines of Diego Gomez. He doesn't have explosive burst, and some there are some athletes that they can just explode out of their runs, and it's really impressive. But in almost every other facet, Rodrigo de Paul is an incredible athlete. And so when you're talking about playing rangy defense, when you're talking about getting in people's faces, when you're talking about getting to second balls, when you're talking about fighting and winning in the midfield, like he has all the athleticism you could want in this league. And so when we think about a Jordi Alba, or when we think about a Federico Redondo, I'm sorry, not Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, you can tell there's a lack of athleticism and they have to make up for it with different skill sets. Federico Redondo, also not sort of a prime level athlete for a midfield in an athletic league like the MLS. And so when you talk about Rodrigo de Paul, he's not going to have to overcome that. He's not going to have to rely on their skill sets to be good. He has that already. And then, as you mentioned, you get to tweak up the vision, the precision, the quality on the ball, the technical ability, the understanding of where to be in the right place at the right time, the defensive chops, everything you could want. Turn the dial up to 10, and he's already the style of player that succeeds in this league. So, I mean, he's an incredible signing.
And I'm a little surprised that Inter Miami actually managed to pull this off, because usually MLS teams go for players who will bring attacking output, who will bring the goals, who will bring the assists, and they'll splurge money on that. They'll bring in players who are in in their prime in that specific part of the field. The final third is where MLS teams invest. I was very surprised that Inter Miami actually managed to identify the weakness that we have. Once Sergio Busquets retires, the quality of this midfield decreases in terms of experience, in terms of um, a full skill set in one player. And every player that we've brought in so far in Luis Suarez and Jordi Alba, in Sergio Busquets is world class, but they come with a little bit of an asterisk where you have to be like, listen, this is not the player that was in their prime, and there's some facets that you'll
Well, and
have to maybe overcome.
And even that, like Sergio Busquets was not a great athlete, even in his prime. And there are
Exactly.
leagues in the world where he would have struggled more than La Liga because of that lack of athleticism. In the
Hmm.
MLS, the style of play, certainly he was never going to be an athlete that was going to be impressive in the midfield. Now, of course, he has the unicorn type skills elsewhere. Um, but again, for Rodrigo de Paul to be that type of athlete coming
He's
in
world class,
and then you
and
add the
he's
skills.
athletic.
Yeah,
Exactly. So
it's
that for
it's
me
awesome.
is just the whole package. And I don't think Inter Miami, barring Messi, has seen that in a while. So the fact that we're getting him and the athleticism that he's going to bring in, the physicality that he's going to bring in on the world class level, I think is the most exciting part about this particular signing.
Well, he's like the athleticism of a Diego Gomez, the intensity of a Diego Gomez, the defensive intelligence of a Yannick Bright, plus the offensive creativity and playmaking of a Tasco Segovia. So
That's the best way to put it.
it's
Absolutely
it's
phenomenal way to put it.
really it's really looking at some of the best players Inter Miami's had over the last couple of years outside of Messi and saying we're just gonna mash them all together to create a super player. And like you said, 31 years old, probably still in the prime of his career. Obviously, by the time this 4-year contract runs out, he'll be out of his prime. But for right now, going into this League's Cup, and I want to focus specifically on his impact immediately, you couldn't ask for a better addition. Um, okay, so how do we use him? Because we've been playing a lot of this 4-4-2. I know Mike on a recent episode wanted to call it a 4-4-1-1, but whatever that feels like semantics. I don't need to differentiate. It's been Messi Suarez up top, and everyone else has to figure out how to play in a block. It's turned into a 4-4-2 with both Segovia on the left and today Wayne on the right playing very deep. It's been Busquets and one of Yannick Bright, Benjamin Kramaski, Federico Redondo next to him. And then the back line has been a mix and mash of who's available and who's in good form. But DePaul's going to play in the midfield. He's going to be in one of those four midfield spots, whether it's that left-sided or right-sided outside midfielder that Allende has played and Segovia has played, or it's going to be one of that midfield two with Busquets and insert other midfielder here. He's going to fit into one of those spots if we keep this 4-4-2. So first question, do you think we're going to keep a 4-4-2? Do you think
I
we're going
think
to play
it'll
the same
be
style with DePaul?
I so maybe we can have a conversation, and I'll answer your question in a second, but perhaps we can have a conversation about how we think Javi Marciano is going to use DePaul and how we would like DePaul to be used, because I feel like those are two separate conversations, even.
Right.
So if we can agree on that, maybe we can have like a 5 minute conversation about how you and I would see Rodrigo DePaul being used for this team.
Yes,
But
we
to
should.
answer your question, I don't think Javi Mascherano is going to change that. I think he's in his mind understood that the best way to set this team up is in a 4-4-2. Uh, with the deficiencies adds to the element of playing Messi and Suarez along the same line. I think that for me is his preferred play style. And even though I personally think that Rodrigo de Paul coming in sort of papers over the cracks and allows us to play a different formation if we want to, my intuition suggests, or perhaps my skepticism suggests, that Javi Marchand is going to stick to the 4-4-2, and we're going to have to somehow fit Rodrigo de Paul in that formation. Now, that's not my preference, but that's my intuition.
I agree. I think this is just me speculating. I think Messi and Suarez want to be up top by themselves. I don't think they want to be part of a front three. I think they want to be part of a front two where Suarez is the striker and Messi sort of that second striker, attack number 10 role, whatever you want to call it. So if that's sort of a prerequisite, and it's seemingly been a prerequisite all year, even Tata Martino at the beginning of last year tried to start that and eventually had to move away from it because we didn't have the pieces for it behind them. But if that's how Messi and Suarez want to play together, and Javier Mascherano is committed to staying in that formation in terms of those two being by themselves up top, I think it might as well be this 4-4-2. We can talk about what we want to do, and we will. But I agree with you. I think we're going to stick with this 4-4-2, which means you get three spots because they're not going to take Sergio Busquets off the field to accommodate Rodrigo de Paul. De Paul comes in. Who's coming out?
I think it's going to be the midfielder next to Sergio Busquets who's going to come out. It's not a position that Javier Mascherano has set in stone because he's been playing Kromaski, Redondo, alternatively there. He also was playing Bright and Redondo interchangeably. So for me, I think in Javier Mascherano's mind, that position is sort of not set in stone in terms of the personnel deployed there. And that's the most obvious position that you would deploy De Paul in, right? That's the position that he would play. The central midfielder next to Sergio Busquets allows Sergio Busquets to be the one on the ball as much as possible. But if you need to connect Sergio Busquets to the front line with Messi and Suarez, you have the skill set, the verticality, the vision of Rodrigo de Paul to find those line breaking passes, to make that connection, to be that link in the linchpin between the deep midfield and the deep forward line. So I think that's how Javi Mascherano will deploy it. And that's actually a one way to look at it, which I think is the most obvious way to look at it, which isn't too bad. But it comes at the expense of the younger players on this team. But the obvious answer is the middle two, Sergio Busquets and Rodrigo de Paul in a double pivot.
I think you. I think it's the obvious answer. I think it's the place that Rodrigo de Paul fits best, and it breaks my heart. And I also don't think it's the best way to use him or set this
I
team up. I
agree.
don't think it gets your best players on the field. But I think the first time that we see him on the field, whether it's against Atlas or later in this tournament, I think it's going to be Busquets and DePaul in that midfield and Allende out wide, Segovia on the left, and then whoever's available on the back line will be on the back line. I think we're going to get into a world where they have to switch over to a different style because you are not getting a dramatic enough of an upgrade by signing Rodrigo de Paul by just putting him in the midfield. I think we are going to get to a point. If it's not game one, I understand. I think if it's not by the end of the League's Cup, we might be having real conversations about putting him out on the right side next to, or rather instead of Allende. He has the ability and the athleticism to be an offensive force going forward. I think it forces you to get more out of your fullbacks in terms of creating some space with verticality. And he's an offensive weapon. And at this league, with his sort of vision and ability creatively on the ball, you're not going to get enough of that out of him if you put him in that deep lying midfielder role next to Sergio Busquets, because that guy has not gotten forward particularly often for Inter Miami this season. Whether it's Kramaski, Redondo, or Yannick Bright, all of them have sort of teetered up, but really made sure they kept their responsibility defensively. And if you want to get the most out of Rodrigo de Paul, you have to be able and willing to let him loose going forward as well. And that's something Allende has more creative license to do. Allende on great form right now, so maybe that's biasing my opinion, but I think if you want to get creative playmakers on both the left and right, you want to get some athleticism on that right side, and you don't want to lose your best of the rest in the midfield. I think you got to move DePaul out to that right side and take Allende off the field.
It's interesting because what you're essentially suggesting is having another Segovia player on that right hand side of the pitch as well. So, as you said, a creative playmaker rather than an out and out winger, if that's what you want to call Allende. And I don't know if that what that does to the balance of the team. I have a feeling that it will work just because the quality is there. Segovia took some time to get into it, but now he's just been playing seamlessly and with a lot of flow on that side. And if you add Rodrigo de Paul in a similar place, I think I'll be honest, it won't look like much of a 4-2. It'll instead look like a 4-2-2-2 when it actually comes together, because both of those would drift inwards, allowing our fullbacks to push forward. Um, but is that what Javi Mascherano wants to do? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure yet. I do think there's a lot of value putting him there because he's played as a number 10 as well. So perhaps he can play as a number 10 in a 4-3-3 and have Messi drift out wide in the right hand side. I don't think that's what Messi wants to do anymore. I think that's what Javier Mascherano will do. So that being said, this player has the attacking instincts. He understands the what it means to go forward as a midfielder. So if you just keep him in that same position as Kremaski and Redondo, ask him to sit back and defend and not venture out forward, that I think is doing a disservice to his ability to impact this team. So the best way to get around this is two ways. You either tell him you have the freedom to, you'll be a true box to box, you can go forward, you can come back, win the ball, get involved in ground duels, but you can also carry the ball forward, you can also help in transitions, you can do that attacking box to box role that you've been born to play, or you push him out wide. I think it's going to be more likely the first case, where he'll have the freedom to just roam and enjoy himself and do whatever he wants to do. And if that's the case, I'll be fine with it to see what it looks like, at least initially. I think the most
Same.
seamless way to bring him into this team is by inserting him next to Busquets and then seeing what works and what doesn't work. And unfortunately, for the duration of the League's Cup, we're probably going to see him in that role. Now, there's multiple different ways that we've talked about that can look. Whether he does the defensive duties first and sacrifices some of his attacking instincts, whether he's allowed to play that true box to box eight, or whether he replaces Allende entirely. I think two of those three options are very, very promising and exciting. I'll let the audience and the listeners decide which of those two are fun.
Um, Here's the problem. If you have it as him in the midfield next to Busquets, he's never coming off the field. Just like Busquets and Alba and Suarez and Messi, they never come off the field. Neither is Rodrigo de Paul. Once he gets on there, he's going to play there every single game for 90 minutes. And your most promising young players are all in that position. So if you put him there next to Busquets, you have Busquets and De Paul every single game as your midfield pivot, every single game. And by the way, not just every single game, they're not coming off of the 60th minute. They're not coming off of the 75th minute. So you are basically telling Yannick Bright, Federico Redondo, potentially David Ruiz, potentially Kremaski, learn how to play fullback because you're not going to play in the midfield. Um, and so that's tough. It doesn't feel like the right way to build the team, and it doesn't feel like you're really getting your best 11 on the field. So I hate the idea of it. uh, and that's why I want to spend the next couple minutes talking about what we think should happen. And Saur, because I'm a gentleman, I will let you go first. How would you organize this team, getting this new, exciting piece? Listen, they may sign a defender. I don't think if they sign a center back, it will dramatically change how they will play. But I think with Rodrigo de Paul, you can make those adjustments. If they get a forward, we will talk about that, of course. But let's just assume they're only signing Rodrigo de Paul and maybe like a second or an extra center back who will just fit in and be among the same type of talents as what they have. How would you set them up?
Multiple different ways are coming to mind. I'm probably going to talk aloud, so some of it might sound absolutely crazy and wild to you, but be patient. Give me some time. Um, First one, easy, I think, is a 4-4-2 diamond. Um, Personnel wise, I think that would look something like Yannick Bright as your deep lying six, or your out and out destroyer, Sergio Busquets and Rodrigo de Paul as the two eights, maybe, and then either Messi as a 10 and then Suarez and Allende as your two forwards, that takes away Segovia, or you put Segovia as the 10, and then Suarez and Messi as the two forwards. And then you can interchange as well. You can put Rodrigo de Paul as the 10 if you want. You can put Segovia as the 10. You can put Kremaski as the 10. You can put Sergio Busquets as the 10. But that, I think, is a very promising midfield. It clears up the space in the wide channels. And if you allow Alba to venture out forward, I think that creates a lot of good opportunities. It'll give you a different attacking option. I know it clogs up the middle a little bit more than we're used to, and a little bit more than we probably like. So maybe there are demerits to that formation. But that's one way I'm thinking you can actually add a very good central midfield, probably the best central midfield that the MLS has seen among the teams currently, by having that four-man diamond in the middle.
I think we need to set some ground rules for this because people are going to play in their heads and we're playing in our heads, but there are some things that are going to happen. And so we should play in reality at least.
Yeah.
Jordi Alba, Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, and Rodrigo de Paul are going to play and start every single game. So if you're coming up with a formation or a style that takes Suarez off the field, you
No.
can throw it out. It's not going to happen. Same thing with Busquets. Same thing with Jordi Alba. Anything you do has to have those five be cemented in place because they're going to start every single game. So if you are taking one of them off, it's just not working in reality. Then I think beyond that, you want to get your best players on the field. So for me, the next two best players are Talasco Segovia and Yannick Bright. I want those two guys on the field almost no matter what. I also want to correct some of the play style issues that I find on this team. I think they play too conservatively. I don't think they have a system set up for their fullbacks to get high up the field as often as maybe they should, or at least as often as Jordi Alba's talent dictates they should. I want to make sure we can get a formation that allows Jordi Alba to play higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And I want the coach to be saying, Jordi, you're not making enough runs, not the opposite. And then it also has to be defensively sound. You can't just have 10 players all playing striker or
Sitting on the
attacking
front line.
midfielder.
Yeah.
Right. We'll have 9 strikers, Messi, and then a goalkeeper. We'll
Yeah,
try and
you
win every
push
game.
the goalkeeper in the forward line as well. Might as well.
We'll win every game 15-14, and the goalkeeper will of winning that 15th goal. Yeah. So I think those are the sort of parameters you have to keep in check.
In other words, the 4-4-2 diamond absolutely fits that.
The 4-4-2 diamond does that. So I think that's good. The other thing is I think Messi and Suarez want to play by themselves. Now,
Yeah.
is this necessarily a ground rule? You may disagree. I think it's a ground rule. I think those two have to be up top. Like that's what they want to do. And Javier Mascherano does not have the talent or ability or experience or prestige or whatever you want to call it to pull them apart from what they want to do on the field. So here's my big, bold strategy. I want to put Busquets on the back line. I think the best way to make this Rodrigo de Paul signing transformational is to decide we're going to put him in the midfield and win every single midfield for every single game for the rest of the season because we have the best midfield. And I think that's impossible if Sergio Busquets plays in the midfield. He is a unicorn on the ball. His vision is outstanding, but he is not athletic enough to dominate a midfield. I think Rodrigo de Paul is. I think Yannick Bright is. I think you put Kremaski in there. I think you can do it. I think you put Segovia in there. You can do it. But I think if you make that double pivot, Yannick Bright and Rodrigo de Paul, you have the ball placement, the ball advancement that you need from de Paul at an unbelievably high level. And then you still have the defensive solidity in Yannick Bright to protect the back line. I want to put Busquets in the back line. I want those two to be my double pivot. And I think if you can do that and make it work, you fundamentally transform how this team plays. Now, Busquets being on the back line, of course, it can make you nervous. We saw it last year. He was suitable on the back line. He was not the worst center back we had. He was better than Kristoff. He was better than Ryan Saylor. I guarantee you he is better than Gonzalo Lujan as center back. I promise. But that doesn't mean he's a world class defender at center back. So I would switch to a back three and put him in the middle and give him a speedy athletic defender on either side of him to protect him and cover for him in transition. That's Noah Allen. That's Totavulas. Maybe it's Maxi Falcone. Maybe it's a new center back we bring in. Maybe it's Chelo Wegon can play there every once in a while because he's got some pace. Maybe it's Ian Frey also. You have some options. And then if you go to a back three, you can push your fullbacks higher up the field. You get Jordi Alba on the left with less defensive responsibility. He can get forward more. He can be more of an impactful piece in attack because there's that three-man back line behind him. And all of a sudden, you switch to sort of a 3-4-2-1 or rather a 3-4-1-2, Segovia being a little bit higher up in that midfield, however you want to sort of describe it. You get Jordi Alba higher up the field. You start dominating midfield because you have Yannick Bright and Rodrigo de Paul as the best midfield pivot in the league and maybe one of the best ever in the league. You get defensive solidity in the back, and you keep Messi and Suarez up top. And then whether it's Cello or Ian Frey as a right wing back, they can fight it out. But I think that's what I would love to see. You now have three in the back. You have the passing range and vision of a Busquets back there to help dictate play. You've got speedy guys next to him on both sides to help protect him. You have, and I'll add, the best defensive midfield pivot in the league to protect the back line. So they won't have as many opportunities or they won't have as many chances coming at them. Those will be deflected, deflated in the midfield. It allows you to intimidate opposition. It allows you to control possession. It allows you to dominate the ball. It allows you to win second balls in the midfield, to create opportunities going forward. And most importantly for me, lets Jordi Alba get high up the field to be an offensive weapon. And I think that's how you get the best out of this team. Give me that starting 11. I guess that means you take Allende off the field and you put in Rodrigo de Paul, but you're switching the formation and dramatically changing how this team plays. That's what I want to see. And if your only problem with this is Sergio Busquets can't play center back, I will just tell you he is a better center back than Gonzalo Lujan. I promise you that. That's what I want to see.
No, that's actually really interesting because you have gone from a detractor of playing the three-man back line in the last season's preseason where Tata Martino tried to do it to now actually facing the three-man back line. But I think it has to do with the personnel, the coach, the way it's been set up. You and I both agree on what the best starting 11 would be. I think it needs to include Yannick Bright. It needs to include Telasco Segovia. We can drop Allende. But overall, that talent level needs to be all on that pitch, along with a Barcelona 4 and now Rodrigo de Paul. Whether it's a 4-4-2, whether it's a 3-5-2, that can be debated. But what you've just laid out, I think maximizes every player's strength and minimizes some of the differences, barring Sergio Busquets, perhaps, who may slightly suffer adjusting in a centre back role, but I think he'll be fine. With
And I
Yannick
think
Bright in front of him, I think he'll be fine.
I think you protect him with the athletic center backs on both sides of him and the athletic
Exactly.
midfield in front of him. And that's the key. It's the midfield protecting him in front of him. And by the way, if that's the one thing that you suffer in order to get your best players on the pitch, Jordi
I'm
Alba
willing to
higher up
do
the
that.
field, midfield dominance, I think it's absolutely a trade worth making. So
And
that's
if
what
you can
I would love to
if
see.
you concede one transition, go score four, I'll be fine with that. I'll be happy with that. You can't have a full fix done in the middle of the season, and that's okay. So if we have to have one vulnerability, and that's like sometimes being caught on transition, not even always, sometimes, I'll be okay with it. And I also think Allen's going to be great in that role next to Busquets. I think Maxi Falcone might actually benefit from that as well. So you can choose who that centre back partnership will look like next to Busquets. But I think that's a great shout. When you showed it to me the first time, and I know you put a graphic for this together just offline, and you showed it to me, and I was like, wow, that's spicy. And I really would like to see that at least one time in the season. Now we're playing Cincinnati tomorrow, according to when we're recording this. We don't know what the score for that is. We don't know what the team and the formation for that is. But with Messi and Alba both absent, we might get to see a three-man backline because we don't necessarily have the the
we,
pieces because no Allen,
the
we
thing
don't have a
is,
left back.
we don't have a left back. So if you switch to
Exactly,
a three-man back line, you don't need a left back. You can have
exactly.
Fafa or Kramaski play out there. But we also don't have any center backs because Maxi Falcone is suspended. And listen, we will talk all about that on the pregame show. So maybe we should stop that here. What I will say, as we're recording, I think it's official that Rodrigo de Paul just signed his contract. So, breaking news 4 days later, uh, we still expect him to start that game against Atlas. I think this just proves that,
Confirms it.
makes that more likely. I would expect him to be at the game against Cincinnati, but not playing. None of that matters because by the time you're hearing this, it'll be known. But
Old news.
maybe we should get back on track. I did want to spend some time talking about our three opponents, talking about the likelihood Inter Miami gets out of this league phase one. I think we're both very excited about Rodrigo de Paul. I think we did a good job of explaining how this tournament's going to work, what the format looks like. But how is Inter Miami going to perform? Is it a conspiracy theory to say that Lionel Messi skipped the MLS All-Star game intentionally so that he would get suspended, so that he could convince himself he needed to prove wrong and motivate himself to dominate the Leagues Cup? Is this the type of mentality that people at the top of the sporting world have? They get themselves suspended just to motivate themselves? Maybe.
You're probably crazy. And that's definitely a conspiracy theory for the books. I don't think a sportsman at that level who's won so much needs a reason to motivate himself. He's probably going to wake up every day already motivated. But crazier things have happened in sports, so I wouldn't be surprised if this was all a plan and Messi has orchestrated and played the MLS. I highly doubt it, but I think he's going to be motivated enough regardless.
Okay, let's talk about these three opponents. They start with Atlas, then they play Nakasha, and I promise I will learn how to pronounce it appropriately by the time we get to that game. But I make no promises for any time before that. And then we play Pumas in the third game. None of these are Tigres, Club America, Monterrey. These are all winnable games. They are Liga MX, so they're going to be better than the worst teams in the MLS, but they are not the top of the Liga MX world. These are mid-table to down type teams. I think Inter Miami is going to be the favorite at home in all three games.
I completely agree with you. We got the mid tier of the mid tier max teams. I think Atlas finished 14th last season. Pumas barely made it into the playoffs, and I think probably got knocked out in the first round. And then Necaxa, think, finished fifth. They're a decent team, an exciting attacking team, but not one that puts me in some issues. You know, it doesn't
Well,
make me fear them. And we've just come out of a tournament where we played against Palmeiras and Porto, beat them. We played against Al-Ali, who was very, very good. And you can't be complacent about the oppositions that you go up against, but this is definitely not the highest quality opposition we could potentially face. All winnable games. Inter Miami is the favorite going into this tournament
if
in
Inter
the
Miami,
3 games that they play.
if Inter Miami can reclaim the intensity they brought to the Club World Cup, and listen, it was the World Cup. It is a special event, intensity off the charts for not just Inter Miami but every team. If they can replicate that for this tournament, they should dominate these three teams. I truly believe that. Assuming there's no injuries, assuming there's no early red card, anything like that, they should dominate these teams. Of course, this team hasn't really played to that level very often this season. So they're going to go in as the favorites. They're going to have home field advantage. Unfortunately, they have to win. There's no room for error
And
because
they have
as
to
we
win
described,
handsomely.
as we described at the beginning of this at the podcast, if you don't get 9 points, you are really going to get lucky to get through. 7 points, and you're going to need some help. And in fact, if you get 9 points, you might not get through. So it is going to be must win for both teams every single game. And if you're Inter Miami, you have the standard of winning this tournament. You lose that first game, disaster. It's an absolute disaster. Uh, so the pressure cranked up 10 out of 10. And so the intensity has to match. And so if the intensity matches, if the players understand this, if they feel it in their bones and they can match the moment, I feel good about Inter Miami in game one. Now, one of the things we said about the Club World Cup is that how you play in the first game is going to affect the rest of the tournament. It's a game by game situation in all reality because form, moments, goals, everything will change everything. Do you feel like this tournament's going to be the same way? Because I feel like less so because you're not facing the opposition that you're going up against for advancement.
I think it's going to be less exertion mentally and emotionally in the players. That was a different scale, that was a different stage. And Inter Miami really needed to pull a rabbit out of the hat and do the impossible. This is a lot more familiar territory. This is us being favorites once again against the teams that we go up against, at least. We are going to be facing different play styles. And again, when we go face these teams, we're going to do our full research, dig into them, the play styles, tactics, and everything. We've done a little bit of that already. I have a certain understanding of how some of these teams play. Atlas plays in a mid block. They're not a very offensively creative team. They are the underdogs here. They like to play with a good structure in place. They're not going to run circles around you. My only concern is that one of these teams just decides to sit back and absorb pressure and hurt into Miami in a counter-attacking manner. If that happens, we could potentially be in a lot of problems sometimes, because this Inter Miami team has shown that then when they're the ones who are favorites to win the game, when they have to take the initiative, they have to take the game to the opposition, and the opposition sits in a low block, we suffer. But that being said, if Atlas has any ambitions to go past the League One or Phase One round and go into the next round, they have to win this game as well. So I think the model and the format lends itself to a lot more excitement. I hope that a lot of these teams won't just sit back and try to get a point, and it's going to be all teams trying to win. And if that's the case, I think matchup to matchup, placed out to pace out, Inter Miami can go and win them and win those games and blow those teams out of the water in all three of them. Atlas is going to play mid defensive block. I think it lends to Inter Miami's ability to just cut through teams with their passing. Necaxa, I think, is going to be a very interesting matchup. This is a fun counter transition team. They will try to play fast football. We've seen what Inter Miami can do against teams that try to come at them and have play with a lot of open space. And Pumas is a team that's going through transition. I think they're just rebuilding with a new coach with Juarez, and they're not fully fixed. They're not the Pumas of the old by any means, and they're not the favorites. So Inter Miami should be going into every single one of these games feeling confident and wanting to blow these teams out of the water. Score 4 or 5 on them every single game. I don't know if that's happening. You can't underestimate these Mexican teams. They're very, very good. Uh, the lower teams are also very good compared to the lower MLS teams. So it's going to be a challenge. But Inter Miami should be able to do this on paper.
What I want to say is every goal matters in a dramatic way. We talked about getting a blowout. I think you only need one blowout. Like you need
Yeah.
one game to stretch it out. If you get a 3-goal win, like I think that you're probably fine if you win your other 2 games because then you're stretching out to at least 5-goal, plus 5-goal differential. You don't need to blow out every single opponent, but if you can get the one, you feel really good about it. I think that almost has to be a part of the equation. And so if you assume you're going to blow out one of these teams, you're talking about the other games. And I don't know which game would be the big one for Inter Miami to win, but or for Inter Miami to win big. But like it's
Probably the
every
first one.
moment, every goal changes your outlook for the entire tournament.
Yeah.
There's no redemption. There's no next game. There's nothing else. So it's going to be squeaky bum time, edge of your seat. I'm so excited for this
Is
tournament.
this You talk a lot about moments. Is this tournament about the moments, or is it about the full 90 minutes?
It's the full minutes because
Yeah.
a moment can change your tournament for sure, but also you don't have the opportunity to get the moments back necessarily. So you have to be good for 90 minutes, and when that's the case, it's like playoff soccer, man. Every minute matters. You can't slip up once. You can't have an early red card. You don't want to get an injury to a key piece, anything like that, or your tournament could be in real trouble. It is intensity off the charts. It is kind of crazy, definitely brutal. I think I love it, man. And Inter Miami
Yeah.
is going to get a brand new superstar piece to put in the middle of that team right as we get into this tournament. I am very excited. I think we should wrap it up there. But last moment, are you now more excited for this tournament than you were an hour ago?
I think that new player bump, what do you call it? New manager
I think you
bounce.
just,
New player
yeah.
bounce. It's going to be so fun. So fun. I hope we actually benefit from it and can go all the way in this tournament. But this is not just like a potential new signing coming in that can have an impact on this team. This is not a Segovia level signing. This is not a Allende level signing where they could eventually fit into this team. This is a Sergio Busquets, Luis Suarez level signing, and we know what impact those players had as soon as they joined the team. I think we might level up in this tournament, and we might see a different side of Inter Miami. If that happens, I'm going to be on the edge of my seat, and so will you.
Hey, 6 games to win it. It's less games this year than last time. And that seems like six games for a new player bump might just do good for my soul. So we'll wrap it up there. Once again, happy birthday. I hope you are leaving your city a little bit of an opportunity to recover, not destroying it too much. But in that, any final words?
No, it's always a pleasure to jump on this. Now Inter Miami is entering a new tournament. Let's go out and win the gold, baby. Let's go out and win the gold.
All right, guys, we will see you as always 1 hour before kickoff on Wednesday. Enjoy your evening. We will see you then. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part